don't worry about being perfect, just be flawed, and people will follow you because of that. The issue with AI is like AI makes content creation cheap, fast, and like limitless. In a world where everything is like limitless and infinite, what becomes important is kind of ownership.
I have seen an incredible amount of portfolios on Instagram filled with mid-journey photos. They're perfect in every definition of the word, but I don't give a
I was like absolutely terrified of posting on Instagram, so I knew it was something I needed to fix, and my way of fixing it was
I want to listen to the rest of this.
I was doing physical paintings, and so one of the first ever yeses, which is crazy, was KSI. Failed one that didn't end up working, but it was still very high risk, was Conor McGregor. He was the one I sent out before KSI, and so I got to his chef.
How did you find his chef?
The guy who cooks for him.
Yeah.
Is it even worth starting a creative career now that AI can do it all?
That's why I
0%.
like Australia as well, because it's like that kind of, I mean, it's a very similar culture to the UK, but I definitely felt like I didn't have to watch my back. Or
No,
like,
yeah, Melbourne is quite safe. But
Yeah.
here, one thing we got shocked was like things were on another level. You can leave your cash and bag and phone
yeah, that's
on a
what,
table
that's what,
and
in fact, that was
order
one of
and
the
come
stereotypes.
back.
Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
to like, is that true?
Yeah, like we went for the first time. We were meeting our friends and we wanted to order coffee.
Yeah.
They left their iPhone. Said, "Okay, let's order coffee." I was like, "In Canada, we never do that. You
Yeah.
leave your phone on the table. You go order. The phone is gone.
Oh, in London, you're
100%.
Yeah.
You're
Here,
done.
not at all. Not at
Yeah.
all. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And
here.
I think the safety matter is so important for us specifically because we
100%.
brought our parents here.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, when our mother wants to take a walk at like 3 a.m. in the morning, if she wants to, she can.
Yeah.
And sometimes she does it like 1 a.m. she's walking the dog because she wants to. We don't have to worry. Sometimes we're like, should we call her? Like, nah, it's Dubai. It's fine.
Dubai is fine.
But we will
that-
never be able to say that if we were in Canada.
That's so cool because
Yeah.
like even for me, I love running in the morning, and like you guys were saying about LA, I don't want to have to plan my route.
Yeah.
I just want to get out. I want to just go out and feel safe and
Yes.
run around or
Yes.
whatever. It's like
Yes.
that's cool to know because like on my list of places I kind of want to live other than UK, it's definitely been Dubai and Australia.
Right,
And I'm
yes.
like, this is obviously the first time here, but so it's cool that the stereotypes so far is like
Yeah.
it's like all the good
They
things
do
I've
check
heard-
out.
They're,
They do
they're
check
checking
out,
out.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause a lot of times you get, like, I mean, LA stereotypes all got crossed off. You know? So I'm like,
Ah, shit, GTA wasn't real.
yeah, exactly,
Damn it.
exactly.
There are some parts that are real though. Some of it is real. I feel like when I arrived there, like the siren sounds. I don't know if it's the same in London, but like the sound of sirens of the ambulance or the police is there every 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean,
which is like
basically-
GTA.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like London, you can't get a hotel without hearing some kind of ambulance or whatever. It's kind of what you get with those kind of cities, I guess. It's just ambient noise is what comes with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have much of that here though.
No. Here is very quiet, very calm. And the thing is, the city is alive. One thing we love, like in Vancouver, everything closes down at 5 or 6 max.
Yeah.
Here, 2 a.m., everything is
Really?
open. Everything is open.
I hate that about the UK as well. Everything shuts 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Sometimes I even question 11 p.m. coffee shop is open. Someone is having coffee. Like, why are you having caffeine at 11 p.m.?
That's what we love. Sometimes
Business
it's
don't
not.
stop.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it's not even about partaking in it. It's the fact that I know the city's awake.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good.
It opens options.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even if I don't want to take the options,
Yeah,
I still want
I
to know
still
there
have the
are options.
options, yes.
Yeah, well, I saw you guys' story about like paddle at like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
even that is like, if you wanted to play paddle in the UK, you got to book a slot between like 3 and 4 p.m. or whatever.
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
You got to, I mean, because everything just shuts early. I mean, it shuts really early. And it's just like,
Right.
I think businesses in general are just not thriving in the UK at the moment, which is kind of sad. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, it's so cool to have the option to just be like, oh yeah, I can just, wakeboard
Yes.
or do whatever.
Yeah.
At any time during the day, and that's the thing that I love about Dubai, because we're pretty extroverted. I take it that you are as well. I mean, from the
I-
energies and the vibes.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely wasn't, but over the last couple years, it's been like a full pelt trying to do talks and meeting people
Right.
that it's kind of forced me out of, because I was very much bedroom bound, like for my whole life up until like maybe 2 years ago. And
Did social media started all of this?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I was actually I was a complete introvert, just like in my room, just like, didn't want to speak to anyone. And I was like, I'm sure we'll save this for the podcast or whatever, but like, in order for this to like turn into a job, I have to like get over that fear of public speaking, which is why I was like spamming just like visiting people, doing talks. I'm
Right.
like, the only way you get better at doing the things that you kind of hate is you just have to do it.
Do it.
constantly.
Yeah.
It's like you can't think about getting better at public speaking.
Yeah.
It's like there's almost like reverse psychology that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's been kind of full pelt the last couple years of trying to do more talks and meet with people, and it made me realize that like you have to get out of your bedroom to have any kind of progress. Even though it feels comfortable to be like, let's stay in my bedroom and grind, it's like you actually don't get a lot of the benefits from staying in the same system over and over again. You've got to like throw yourself out into kind of Lux surface type vibes.
It's hilarious that you say that, because it doesn't look like that. When we watch your talks, you sound like you've been doing this for such a long time and so comfortable at it.
Go back to my first Blender one. Horrendous.
This is the crazy thing, though. That's the thing. So people see you today and they assume that you've always been like this.
Yeah.
But according to yourself, that is not the case. So perhaps that's not how you felt.
No. If you spoke to any of my teachers from school, any of my friends, I was like timid, absolutely terrified of public speaking. I mean, I'd say myself, it's still my top fears would have been death, public speaking. Like,
You're scared of death?
Yeah, yeah. In a way. I think, in my opinion, being scared of death allows you to be more motivated, because it's like...
True.
It makes you aware. If you forget that like death is a thing, then you kind of won't, do things now.
Right,
Whereas I
yes.
feel like death is like a good motivator in a really mundane way to be
Yes.
like, your time's short, you got to do things.
True.
So in that sense, I'm scared of it. To be like, I need to, if I wasn't scared of it, I might just like lay back and be like, it's chill,
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I think if you spoke to any of my teachers or anyone my entire life, I was like, introverted as hell.
Right.
And public speaking used to take a lot for me to actually talk to people. But I think I've really it's kind of like exposure therapy at this point, where I'm just like fear has become like a bit of a signal of like what to target or like what to do. And it's made me just realize that a lot of times you're only anxious over something because you haven't done it a lot. So like anxiety just comes from like lack of preparation or like lack of doing the thing. So I'm like, okay, if I'm like scared of that thing, it just means it's an area that I haven't tapped into. And it's like with everything, it's a skill that you have to like develop. And I think a lot of times we just assume like, you're born that way, or like that's how I'll be my whole life or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I guess if you get stuck in that mentality, then you will be kind of living that notion of trying to, your perception of yourself will stay the same if you think that you're just born that way. Whereas I think a lot of things you can change. And public speaking was one of the things where I was like, and you kind of, in this social media space, you kind of have to be good at it. So it's like a thing that I just have to get over. And being in my room was a way for me to get over it. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about art? With public speaking, sure, that's not something that you have to do, but art is something that you're known for, right? And you're known for in different mediums of art as well.
Yeah.
Some people just do 3D art. Some people may just do canvas, but you can do so many forms of art and you're so good at them as well. Would you say the same thing about your art? Was it something that you feared in the beginning, or was it something that you were naturally talented in?
I think I've been very fortunate in the sense that when I was young, I, for some reason, always knew that I wanted to get into a career in art. It was like the thing that I was always doing as a kid. I got into like middle school and was like physical painting. This was at this point. So art has always been kind of like that core how I have always been. But in the sense of how I progressed into other forms of art, it was always, 3D art was never something I thought was going to be a career. I thought my career would be just physical painting because that was what I did my whole life. It was more, I've just always been interested in creative topics as a general, but I love skill acquisition or like learning. And so it's like, as soon as I have kind of like an ounce of like curiosity into a certain topic, I like delving deeper into it to see if it's something I want to, continue with. And 3D was one of those things which happened by coincidence in year 7, which is like around 11 or 12 years old. I didn't go on a school trip that everyone went to France or whatever, and there was like 6 kids that were back in, just wasn't going on the trip, and so they were having to like fill out time. And one of them was, they introduced Google SketchUp, which was my first ever 3D kind of tool. And in a blessing in disguise, I mean, that week kind of forced me to be like, I want to delve into this. I have no other thing to do this week.
That's insane. That's insane.
What a great accident.
Yeah, that is a really good accident.
Yeah, and so it was really cool because it was like that started this curiosity. And also I came from like a weird family in the sense that my mom was really skeptical of the internet and phones and Wi-Fi. And so when I was really young, I never had I didn't have a phone until I was like 16, I think. I didn't have Wi-Fi for ages, and a lot of my friends were all on Instagram, whatever. And I didn't have any of this. So when I used to go home from school, it was like the number one thing I wanted to do was continue like the interests that I was doing at school. So I'd go home and would draw, and then when I got introduced to Google SketchUp, that was the only thing I'd do at home. I'd build houses on my computer, and I had no internet, so it's like that was like the thing I'd just keep doing as like entertainment.
Wow. Do you think that helped you a lot, that restriction of not being distracted by Instagram or by Wi-Fi, that you could, doom scroll on the internet?
In retrospect, I do. I also think that at the time, I was I've always kind of loved revising and like schoolwork in general. So it was always a shock that I didn't go to uni, was like a lot of the things that my teachers said. But I've always, when I was back in year 7 or even before that in infant school, I was really far behind in a lot of my subjects. And so I entered school with this kind of like underdog mentality because I was the lowest set in English, maths and everything. And after like the first year, when I was like really, as soon as I joined a new school, like a secondary school, I was like, okay, I want to start clean a slate. I'm like lowest set everything. I like almost like it was kind of like a drive to try and prove that, this isn't kind of who I am type thing. And so it became like this internal motivator of like, I have to prove myself vibe. And I think I took that then back home with like skills and things when I learned very quickly that you have to put effort into, you don't just get born good at things. Yeah. You have to put effort in. I think I learned that quite young to try and prove myself that I could, be good at English, be good at maths. And in turn, I use that kind of way of thinking into how I develop skills or just enter new, areas of interest with the same mentality of like, you can do anything that you just put time and effort into. It's not like someone's good at it and born that way. You can learn to be good at something. You just have to put the time and enough kind of patience into it. But to answer, I think having distractions definitely helped with, not being too worried about what the external world was doing when I got home and not being worried about comparisons. I think that probably in hindsight was actually a great thing because it meant that I was purely focused on my own improvements on a day-to-day rather than comparing myself to, the only people I had to compare myself was people in my class.
Which is a very short, like small population. Very small population.
Well, and it hit me hard when I left school then because a lot of my internal kind of outset was like in my school classroom, and then you get thrown when you don't go to uni. Your comparisons then become Instagram or become the world, and then it's like, that leap is horrifying, and it can definitely throw you off mentally because you're kind of entering a whole other domain of realizing that people are progressively getting better and better and better, and it's like this constant engine of like improvement where you can definitely get demotivated by that feeling of this endless cycle and what's the point, I think a lot of people, artists especially, are kind of feeling that way right now with AI because it just feels like, not even humans are upgrading anymore. It's like, the robots can do your thing and they're upgrading by themselves without this internal like motivator. But yeah.
Learning 3D, VFX, and animation should not take you years. That's exactly why we designed the Ultimate Unreal Engine program, which is our best work yet. This is our masterpiece, which is going to take you step by step from beginner to pro in Unreal Engine in just 14 days. And by the end of it, you'll get to create a beautiful cinematic short film just like this. We'll take you step by step through pre-production, planning out your scenes, to setting up your environments using photorealistic assets really quickly.
We will teach you modeling, texturing, and animation.
We'll even teach you how to use metahumans to create beautiful digital characters that look real.
We will teach you AI workflows to speed up your process.
We'll teach you how to set up your lights so that your scenes look cinematic. We'll teach you how to use cameras inside Unreal Engine to set up beautiful shots, animate the cameras, not just digitally, but using virtual production techniques like using your phone to move the camera in the scene, which is super fun.
We will teach you motion design tools so you can create an amazing title sequence at the end.
We'll teach you simulations as well, like cloth, destruction, and particles. And you learn all of this in 14 days.
And for those of you who are listening to this podcast, we have a very special price. Use the code PODCAST in the link below this video and you will get $300 off from our Ultimate Unreal Engine program.
And to make it a no-brainer for you, if you hate the course and you hate our teaching style, we'll give you your money back because we've never had a single person say that before. You can even go to our Discord community and check with our members what they think about the course. And by the way, speaking of the Discord community, we have 24/7 support for all of our students, which means if you ever have any issues while learning, you can always contact us. We'll respond, get it solved. Even if the problem persists, you can send us your Unreal Engine files and we will fix it for you, send it back so you're never stuck. And the reason why we're so proud of this 24/7 support is because most courses don't actually offer that. So if you're learning and you get stuck, it's over and you're lost. So, Farhad,
click on the link below this video and use the code PODCAST.
PODCAST, in case you didn't know. Let's get back in.
You know, you mentioned something, I'm going to go back a little bit earlier about nurture and nature, how you believe more about our capabilities of learning whatever we want to get good at.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, I was born this way, so I'm going to stay this way for the rest of my life.
Yes.
And I think that's such an interesting perspective that not many people have. We have it too, and I love that about the texture of our mind. And
Yes.
clearly you have the same. And I want to figure out how someone can get to that mindset, because even this perspective you can adopt.
Yes.
But how do you think you adopted this? What was the reason you've had this in your mind that you can do anything if you set your mind to it?
I think to have confidence in knowing that you can do something comes from stacking experience and so your brain. I think as soon as I started following that intuition to go towards fear and go after the things that I was really scared to do, it kind of became this mental stack of I have evidence to then into my next thing. My brain has evidence to rely on, because I think a lot of my internal motivator came from self-doubt. I was super doubtful, like I said, super underdog mentality. I didn't think I was very good, and so I knew I had to prove myself wrong in that sense. And I think the only way you're able to then go into skills with a somewhat confidence that you can do this is by having evidence. Because if you go in, that's the thing, it's the first step is the scariest of going after something you're really scared to do, or something that you don't think you're able to do. But once you have that, it's great leverage to then you have evidence that your brain is okay, well, I'm scared the second time round, but I have evidence that I've done it the first time round.
And I didn't die.
And I didn't die.
And you just have to do it one time. You do it one time, then you can take that evidence and do every single task that you have after that.
Yeah, but I think the thing I've found that an issue with this mentality kind of is if you're reliant on evidence and your brain needs evidence to prove that you're good at something, if you take time off, it can become very toxic, because then your brain's well, you've been slacking off.
Yes.
You have evidence of that, not being that kind of person, and then you can very quickly spiral into that. I don't have evidence, and you're
the critic comes on.
Exactly. And I think I had to almost gaslight myself into this belief, because I was super cynical of myself. I was very self-doubtful for ages, and it required, and I think it was just a lot of podcasts, a lot of sitting in my room listening to things. I used to just drown out my own thoughts with other people's thoughts.
Yeah,
and
that's actually a good strategy.
Well, it's great, because it's you also get a lot of your mentality and your way you see your world around the 5 closest friends you have, for example.
Right.
And podcasts in a weird way can be your 5 closest friends.
True. Yeah.
Because you're still getting information access, as you would in a conversation, but you're kind of, instead of taking it from real, in-person type things, you're taking it from the internet. And that's the awesome thing about YouTube or whatever, is there's you're almost in the rooms and having meetings with
Right.
CEOs because, I mean, you're technically in the podcast with them by being a listener in a
Yes.
weird way. Like you could easily have that conversation with them behind the closed doors, but everything's so public now that you're almost sitting in those meetings with people that you're inspired by. So I think that was always the first step for me, was like, first of all, kind of who am I inspired by? Who are the type of people that I think have, it seems from the outside like they have their life sorted out or whatever. And then I'd just kind of all day be sitting in my room with my headphones on, listening to these kind of people, and it would gaslight me into being like, okay, they've said, I'm kind of seeing a pattern with like 6 people that are kind of saying the same thing. I'm forming my own opinions now of like not copying them, but like getting a rough radar on what people are doing. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm gathering evidence from them. I now need to take this first step myself to get that, number one evidence in your head.
Right.
And then once you've got that, then you can kind of progress onwards, I think.
When did you decide that you don't want to go to uni?
Very early on. I'd say my friends probably knew probably in like year 9, so maybe like
Your
14.
parents?
No, my friends.
Okay.
And I think my parents knew as well, to be honest.
Okay.
My teachers definitely didn't, because I think the weird thing was like I was always very wanted to get good grades in school. So from the outside, it seemed like the right route for me would have been like uni. But I was really, I think as soon as I'd say probably in year 11, coming to the end, about to join 6th form, I was very adamant that it was almost a motivator to not go to uni. I don't really know why I didn't want to go. I think I just realized, especially in the creative industry, that from listening to other people, that you really didn't need a degree as your proof of like being good at a certain subject. It's like a lot of times they just required a portfolio. And so to me, every time I'd go to the open days, I just wouldn't get very motivated by kind of the topics that they were bringing up. I really just felt like I wanted to go into the industry straight away and see what I could make work. And so, straight after school, I took a gap year, and I just said to my parents, like, if this year doesn't work out, I'll happily go to uni. And I had Loughborough in UK, which was like a design uni, as my, it was kind of secured placement after the year. And that was enough for me to be like, this is like the biggest, greatest short-term motivator for that year, to do as much as I physically could to make it work, because I was so desperate to not go to uni. So in a weird way, it was like quite a nice, like back of my head, like, if you don't, buck up your
This is
idea.
where you're gonna end up.
You have to go to uni.
Yeah, and I was so desperate not to that it was a great motivator, because it really did force me to take action the second I left school, to try and see what I could do.
What did you do?
Yeah, so I didn't have anything planned,
Okay.
which was always very scary when the teachers would kind of, ask about, after school year, like, you're either meant to travel normally or like have some kind of work experience booked in. I didn't have any of that because I didn't want those two kind of things. I didn't know what to do. I was more... I just knew that I needed to get a portfolio together to outreach to people. So I kind of knew I kind of broke it down into, okay, if I want this to be a career, I need something to be successful. In order for something to be successful, I need to somehow make some kind of money as some evidence for my parents.
Some proof.
Some kind of proof.
Yeah.
And then in order to get the proof, I just kind of worked backwards from where I wanted to be at the end of the year, and go, so, okay, I need proof. How do I get proof? I need someone to take me on. How's someone going to take me on? I need a portfolio. How am I going to get a portfolio? I need to do some kind of work now. And so that was the bit where I was like, okay, how can I be creative in the how can I get work now? And that's the scary part, because it's almost like you're starting with a blank canvas in an artwork, which is like the most daunting part, and it can lead to very easily procrastination and going in circles and feeling like, what's the point of like spending a whole week on some random project? Like, you don't have any assignment.
Yeah. Right.
So my strategy to get my head out of like just making anything was I would scour the internet for any design competitions, not to win them, as like almost like a fake brief. So I'd pretend that competition was like had hired me as
Right.
like they were the brand. And so there was a lot of like Nissan competitions that would have like a deadline. And
That's genius, actually.
well, it was great because it meant that I could essentially take on briefs and convince myself it gave me a deadline, which you
Sure.
need,
Yes.
in my opinion, because it's like, otherwise you will just fade off into, tweaking for infinite amount of time.
You'll never finish your work.
You'll never finish,
Yeah.
exactly. And especially when you have a whole gap year of nothing planned, you'll
Yes.
easily be like, oh, well, I've got next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have a school bell anymore to
Yes.
hold you accountable to stop and have dinner or whatever. So I liked the fact that they gave me a deadline. They gave me a brief. So I was kind of like within like a creative structure. So I knew I had to create something. And it also meant that I could have a list, a document of like all the competitions and just kind of build a portfolio that way. So that was, and also the side effect of competitions, which wasn't the main thing, is you can potentially win them. So,
Did you end up winning
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Oh,
so-
nice.
You
Okay,
won.
all right, that's good.
yeah.
That's actually a genius move, because we have thrown competition for our community, and
Yeah.
one of the reasons we ask them to compete is actually not for the price.
Yeah.
It's for the competition itself, because you
Absolutely.
have a deadline
Yeah.
and there is a challenge,
Yeah.
and you can get inspiration from other people.
Yes.
Because a lot of people, it was funny, our first competition, a lot of people wanted to see other people's work. They were there to submit just to see what other people are doing,
Yeah.
to get more inspiration.
Yeah.
And I think what you did was actually really genius, and people should really go and sign up for all these challenges. Even if you don't win, you learn a shit ton in the process.
You have to make the winning bit really, that can't be the motivator, in my opinion. It's like it's kind of what's happening now. You have to kind of stay away from being output orientated and be very process orientated.
Right.
It's like the reason you're doing these competitions has to be based on, you want improvement, you want to build a portfolio. It's like you're prioritizing the process as the reason you're signing it up, and then it's kind of like a secondary aftermath is like the outcome of the competitions, which is cool, because but again, it's if you get too focused on the competition winnings, you're gonna fall very quickly into the demotivation cycle of like, oh well, I suck, I didn't win.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you make that not the priority, it really doesn't matter, and eventually you will win, which was like the thing that I found. But it's like, and also sometimes you don't, but at the same time you're building your own skills as a side effect as well. So it's kind of like a win. Like, I saw it as like, it didn't matter if I won the competition, I won because it was like improving my own like technical skills, and it was giving me briefs in different areas. And to kind of talk with what you were saying earlier, it gave me kind of, I would enter product design competitions, maybe an art competition, animation, like illustration, digital design. So it really kind of expanded my portfolio in a short span of time over lots of areas, which I then could move on to the next step, which was like outreach to people, which I also think is a thing that people vastly kind of like overthink. And I definitely was a bit of a weird stalker. I'd kind of just go on LinkedIn and would find like the creative directors of brands instead of the actual like CEO. You just go down the ladder, and like you just need someone who's connected to someone, like maybe 2 connections away, and find their email, be very specific with like why you're reaching out to them.
Why did you reach out to them?
Well, it'd be varied for different companies. So like a lot of the times I'd reach out to brands that I was just generally interested in, because I just thought, I have a portfolio now. What do I do with this? Well, I want to enjoy what I'm working on. So let's just write a list of all the like notable people or influencers or whatever that I was just kind of like inspired by, to see if I could, I don't know, find a way to get in. And with each one individually, instead of sending like a very default email, I'd be very sure to try and make their yeses like frictionless as possible. So I'd go into each one, make sure I was checking out what they were doing at the time, find, instead of DMing like the official account, which you'll never get a reply back with, just finding like, chefs of certain influencers, or creative directors of brands, or the brand marketing person on LinkedIn of that brand. And then I'd find their email, reach out to them very specifically saying like, hey, I can see that you're doing da-da-da. I can do an animation for you free of charge. And I would never mention my age because that was always like, at the time, that was like a big hindrance because it was like, well, if you want to, especially in the animation industry, it's like they want experience a lot of the time. So yeah, I'd never mention my age.
But they look past it once they understand how good you
they see
are.
the
So you have to
portfolio,
hide the age for the first bit. I totally understand
But
that.
actually,
yes.
I think people, especially if in the creative industry, if you look at a portfolio, you barely start asking the question, how old
Yeah,
are
but
you?
that's why she hit the age.
Yeah,
Showed portfolio first, and then age could come later.
I think what she did was very smart, was not sending a default resume to every single person.
Yeah.
Like
We
how
are-
people are sending ChatGPT emails now.
Well,
we
the
are
double
going-
hyphen just gives it away.
Yes, we are going through a process now when I'm looking at different applicants when they submit for bad decisions. And after 500 application, after 600 application, you can immediately say that if this is a default or ChatGPT version of a resume, or someone actually put effort, they took a look at your account, they see what you guys are doing, they're interested in joining you.
Yes.
And I think that is worth way more than technical skills.
Yeah.
It's about the drive, passion, and the desire of that person joining the company.
The more personalized it is, the better.
Exactly. And I wanted their yes to be as frictionless as like physically possible. So I'd be like, I'd basically make it so that they felt like it'd be silly to say no.
Yes.
That's why I wanted them to read it and be like, well, they don't, you're just getting a free animation, no ties with this. Like, I'm just going to send it you. And my whole goal was like always over deliver miles by what they wanted. Because the second time, like as soon as you do that and you have your foot in the door, it's like I found with pretty much all the people that would get back to me, they'd always come back now with another job. And then that would be a paid job. So it was like that free thing. And I think it's weird because, a lot of people say, don't do free work or like,
Right.
don't.
That's BS.
Yeah,
No.
I really do believe that you kind of, in a weird way, have to if you want to get your foot in the door to begin with.
It's a cheat code.
It is a cheat code, and it's like it allows you to build skills. I understand. Obviously, people need to pay bills, whatever.
Yes.
But if you're doing something on the side as like a hobby, that's why making your hobby your job is kind of a good thing because I'm like I would be doing this for free anyway.
Yeah.
And so with the ones that got back to me, it was like, well, I'm enjoying this, doing this, and they're getting something out of it, and it's helping me then build. And it was cool because then as soon as one person says yes, that's added to your portfolio, and then you can like build this client list this way, just one by one. And that's kind of what happened at the beginning. Although at the beginning I was not doing animation outreach to begin with, I was doing physical paintings. And so one of the first ever yeses, which is crazy, was KSI.
Oh, nice.
How did that happen?
That was, I think I reached out to his manager at the time, who was called Liam. I don't think he works with him anymore. And it was a cold email. I got a cold email back saying, yeah. Because I was like, I'll draw a painting of KSI.
Yeah, why would he say no?
Yeah.
It was free, right? You offered it for free.
Yeah.
Okay. So why
Like-
would you say no?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, a lot of these emails go to their junk or whatever
Right.
for these influencers. And it's also hard in the sense that they get free fan mail. So I was kind of trying to go at it from like a perspective of like, this is like a physical piece of artwork rather than fan mail.
Right.
And like I'll deliver it to his house and whatever. So there was still a bit of friction point for them to say no because it's like a random cold email and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, that was an awesome green flag for me myself to be like, okay, this strategy works in a way that I didn't believe it could work. And that was like the first ever, I guess, validation point of like, okay, that's this is really cool to know that you can just go from nothing to getting a yes back. And there was plenty of ones that another one, a failed one that didn't end up working, but it was still very high risk, was Conor McGregor. He was the one I sent out before KSI. And so I got to his chef, and his chef...
His chef.
Yeah.
How did you find his chef?
The guy who
The guy
cooks
who
for
cooks
him.
for Conor McGregor, yeah. Which...
I want to listen to the rest of this.
But it's funny that when you send these emails, a lot of people are scared of
Yeah.
sending these emails, and it's free to send this email. If you have the intention, if you can find these people on LinkedIn, and nowadays it's much easier to find these
Yeah.
people.
You can ask ChatGPT to find these people for you sometimes.
And then you can get a yes.
I think for me nowadays it's really weird because like sending emails for me nowadays is a lot harder for me to. No, but in the sense that it feels mentally more harder in a weird way because I've gone into this kind of mindset of like, oh, I need to tackle hard things first, and then I end up never now emailing or getting all the small things, and that ends up actually taking up a lot more anxiety because it's like these small things building up.
Right.
But I think at the time when I was sending emails, that was my main thing. That was the hard thing. You know, nowadays the sending the email doesn't feel like the hard thing, and as a result, it's now become the hard thing because now it's like built up small things that I now can't do as like quickly because it doesn't feel like they're worth the time.
It's
anymore.
Not as rewarding
it's not
in
as
your
rewarding.
mind. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, so when I'm talking about when I first did it, that was like the main goal. It was like, that was the thing that I had to do.
That was the fear you needed to overcome.
Yeah, that was the fear I needed to overcome.
Now it feels like, is it too easy for you to send the email? That's why you don't say it. It feels like you want to put in more work to feel like you've earned more. Is that why?
I think so. I think it's the rewards factor of sending an email feels really just like low.
Right.
That
right.
I as a result put it off, and then as a result of that, it then becomes its own like issue.
Stress, stress release.
So
we should fix that. We should figure out a way to fix that. But I totally get what you're saying. Although before we forget, got to get back to Conor McGregor's chef. I'm sure everybody watching is like, don't skip that part. What happened with the chef? Like, where'd you go with that?
So I sent it to his chef. I mean, this is a story I haven't actually told because it was it didn't really lead to anything because I sent it to his address. He ended up definitely receiving the thing. So I got the message that it got received. But I think he just kept the painting. And then he blocked me on everything. So
what?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, all right. These things can happen. That's the beauty of it, right?
It's the risk to reward factor. You kind of, and by the way, that was like 100-hour painting.
Yeah, I was thinking of the effort.
Yeah. It was huge. It was a huge kind of. I mean, it was partially for my schoolwork at the time that I'd drawn Conor McGregor, and then I just had it at home as a piece that I wanted to give him. And so after I'd left school, I was like, okay, I really want to get this to him somehow. And yeah, I mean, I rolled it up, I signed it, did everything, sent it, and then that just didn't. And to be honest, that was like my first ever kind of. Like sending out to an influencer.
That was before KSI.
That was before KSI.
So, but that didn't stop you from doing this.
That's a great thing.
That's what I was about to say. It's like, I'm glad it didn't, but it definitely could have because that was a huge hit. I was like, okay, this doesn't work. And I don't really know why I continued doing it. I think it was just desperation. I think there's a big difference between like wanting something to work out like as a career and needing it to work out. And I think I was in a state where I was like, I needed it to work out.
Right.
And the short-term motivator being not going to uni was a good thing to rely on then because it meant that these kind of knock-ons I had to just like bypass and move on because I was like, otherwise, the end outcome is going to be what I don't want. So I just have to get over it. And I think that was a good thing because, like I said, if I didn't have these kind of deadlines or things going on which created a bit of pressure and stress, I think I would have dwelled on things longer, which you can definitely get in the space of now, which I find more of an issue is like now that you don't have as like, maybe a short-term desperation goal. It's like it's easy to feel like you have more time, but I don't like sometimes feeling that way because it can make you a bit slower.
We always talk about this and we say the discomfort is the place to be.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable, something is wrong.
Yes.
If you don't have any pressure, something is wrong. And usually after a huge project, me and Faraz are sitting down and we are thinking, everything is good now. We should create something. We should create a huge challenge.
Let's fabricate our own challenges.
Let's make something that we have never done before. Let's do something that is
crazy. It's much better to fabricate the challenges yourself rather than waiting for life to create them for you.
100%.
Because the life creating it for you would be the university coming back. Right? That's the university. That's life being like, okay, you're going to go to uni. But if you create the challenges, which is doing the competitions, sending in the paintings, DMing everyone.
Yeah.
That is when I think the challenges self-fabricated are a lot more pleasant than if life creates them, because now you curate your own life and
Absolutely.
the experiences that you want.
Yeah, and there's been people that have said to me before, like I've been like, oh, I'm super busy, and like when I explain to them what I'm doing, I'm like, I then go, oh, this is so weird because like all the things I'm busy about are all things I've invented myself.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I've created
Yes.
the busyness. So in a weird sense, I'm actually not busy because like they're all just been put on my plate by myself.
You can choose to stop them at any moment.
exactly. So
But you won't do that.
But at the same time, I can get very, because I think the bad thing about me is I do get swinging into extremes very quickly. So
Tell me about it.
yeah, but it's sometimes I mean, especially since meeting my friends in Australia, it's been a kind of a new experience to learn how to step back in a healthy way, because I was so on the train of like, I have to now just solitary confinement myself to my bedroom.
Aussies are chill.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aussies take it chill. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It almost required an equal opposite, like of that extreme, to drag me out of this mindset of like, I can't leave my bedroom. I have to do this every day is the only way to progress. And because you can get into that toxic mentality very quickly as soon as you equate like personal progress to your own well-being or your own state of mind. It's very toxic to then you can't enjoy you can't enjoy inconveniences that happen in your life that could be just someone saying that they have they're in the area and they want to meet up with you can then become like an inconvenience in my head. And it's like, that should be a really like a great enjoyment.
Yes.
But then it becomes like, this
Fuck, the friend is calling again.
No.
Shit.
I have to reply.
I have to respond. I have to go.
Yeah.
We know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's like, that is an awful headspace to be in. And I think I learned that, especially the last 2 years, that you have to prioritize the opposite as intensely, probably, as the working.
Yes. But it's so dangerous, this conversation, because depending on where the listeners are in their life, which stage, they have to take what you just said with a pinch of salt. Because I think in the beginning, that toxic mentality is necessary. If I were to go back and be absolutely unbiased, because we had similar beginnings, like we had to burn the boats when we immigrated. We had no other options. And so we had to make bad decisions work.
Yes.
And so if I go back, it makes sense that at those times, the inconveniences were something that were there. They were a reality, because anything that was going to distract me from my work was going to be a reason for me to go back to my home, and I didn't want to do that. Right? I wanted to stay in Canada. I wanted to stay in Dubai and make this work.
Yes.
But I think as you start finding success, as you start making more money, as you start building a career for yourself, that's when you have to learn how to now balance.
Absolutely.
Now you have to go back to be like, okay, I can actually hang out with my friends a little bit. I can actually play a video game if I want, and that shouldn't feel like the biggest guilt in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that is something everyone who now finds success will have to go through, because you've trained your mind and brainwashed yourself to believe that any time outside of work should feel guilty.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
Yes.
Right? Slowly you have to balance it out. But I guarantee it, we haven't even figured it out ourselves. So I don't know.
I also think this is also what I've learned from my Australian friends is like, also you have to prioritize, like you have to understand yourself. So you don't have to change yourself. I think it's just the more you become self-aware of how you behave and the way that you think when you're in these situations where you feel like you're getting guilty. It's not having to change yourself out of those. You just have to be more aware of what you're doing, so you have better decisions to then counteract how you're going to behave in a weird way. So I think like at the beginning, I agree with you. At the beginning, I wouldn't want to change anything, but I would want to be more self-aware of what I was doing, I think, because but at the same time, you then could argue having that naivety at the beginning is also
it's a good thing.
It's a superpower.
It's
It's a
super
superpower. We always say, when in doubt, just work. When you're in doubt, the side effects are less detrimental if you work. And I think, as Faraz mentioned, the more you progress, the more your career grows, the more you make money, then you have to take a step back. We call it reflection days. A day, just go sit down, think, what do you want? What do you want to achieve? Some people might be very happy from the position that they're in.
Yes.
Others might not be happy from the position they're in, and they want to grow. If you want to grow, the activities that you must do is very different from a person who wants to stay in the same position.
Yeah.
So the reflection, I think, is super important.
Yeah, and I think one thing I've definitely learned in the last 2 years is this kind of difference between like a mastery mindset and a momentum mindset of like, or Simon Sinek calls it kind of the infinite game versus the finite game. And it's this mentality that I think I was stuck in for most of like my early life, which was this mastery destination mindset of like, I had a goal in mind, whether it be a particular skill or some kind of outcome that I wanted. And I'd work as hard as physically possible, and hours equaled skill out. So like hours in my head meant skills out. And I'd do that until I either reached the outcome I wanted or I'd feel a bit burnt out. And as soon as I do that, I'd then zigzag onto a new skill that'd become a beginner again and get that feeling all over again of having to start from scratch and then grind for like 4 weeks to get an outcome, feel a bit burnt out, then zigzag. And I do this like constant zigzagging. But the issue with this is like you become super output orientated, you become super destination orientated. And if I was to scale any of those little zigzag marks over 3 years, it'd be unsustainable to keep up at that pace and that energy level for that amount of time. So then you have to start thinking about, and also a lot of times you can only get a successful business if you're stuck at one thing and you're not getting distracted, because that's the other thing. I'm getting too distracted by too many things. So each one of these like lines are like almost not, like I feel productive because I'm doing quantity and I'm doing a lot, and I'm not getting burnt out because I keep becoming a beginner again and starting that whole progression cycle and keep zigzagging. And so I was in this kind of facade of feeling like I was productive, and to the outside it looked like I was doing lots of things, but in every one area I wasn't taking it to the amount that it definitely could be taken to. So I think now I'm kind of learning that in order to do something to be successful, you have to stick at that one thing and you have to have focus. And that means you're gonna have to work on it for many years. And then again, if you're gonna reverse engineer it to work on it for many years, you have to have better processes in place to allow you to work at something for long times, which means that my old ways of doing things just isn't possible, to not go out with friends, not drink, not do anything, not learn how to cook, not like I was so focused on work as like my number one thing. Everything became sidelined, and it was.
So you eliminated all hobbies.
I eliminated all hobbies. My environment was in my control, which meant that as soon as life threw life things at you, it was almost like that would spiral me into like anxiety and things. So I was like, I can't control this because I need this outcome or whatever. But it's like you have to enjoy the process to make it go long term. And that's what I'm like trying to adapt now, is being focused on one thing, not feeling productive but actually being productive, and extending those little zigzags that I used to do into like a long line of, and also acknowledging the fact that life can throw chaos at it, and that's like part of the joy of creating, is like how to deal with, so not turn your environment into something you can control. You just have to adapt to the environment, not the opposite, I think.
For us, you can imagine it's a double zigzag. So Faraz has his own zigzag, I have my own zigzag.
Oh yeah,
you're all over the
just
place.
overlap it. Yeah,
it's funny when you mention that. For me and him, some days Faraz come up with a new idea. Some days I come up. Yeah, every day, every single day, and it's very hard. And I think it got even worse the past few years because of AI and internet. Because now the potential of doing something is much faster.
Yeah.
Like if 7 years ago you wanted to build an app, you had to get a developer, you had to have a team. Now if Faraz has an app idea, we can do it ourselves in this studio.
It's like Lovable is like there's an app that just
to be focused in today's age, I think it's really a superpower.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for everybody to be focused on what they want to do, at least for a certain period of time, to get it to a place that they believe they have achieved mastery, or they have achieved something that they are proud of. For someone might be 1 year, for someone might be a decade. And I've seen a lot of people who deliver really outstanding results. When you talk to them, it's not a 1 week or a 1 month or even a 6 month job. They've been on it for years, and they've been experimenting with it for the longest time ever. And I think that's super important for people to know when to focus and know when to pivot to the next thing that they want to do.
Yeah, and AI is absolutely kind of throwing people into that spiral of feeling behind and feeling like they can't progress. And I think if anything, it double downs on what we were saying about like the destination can't be the focus, because like I was saying on one of my other talks, it was like the issue with the outcome is like AI has outcome covered. It has perfect outcomes. It has instant reward kind of thing, which means you have to prioritize. The process has to be the number one. The outcome is again, has to kind of be secondary, because we're now in that space now where it's like AI has that part covered. So if you're so, focused on outcome orientation or destination or kind of, whatever on that kind of area, you're just going to be thrown into a spiral of feeling like you're never going to, get there because something can do it in 1 second. And that can cause a lot of other domino effects of issues of like not starting things and feeling like you can't ever use AI because it has this like negative connotation. It's like almost a threat.
You started the talk with the question, is it even worth starting a creative career now that AI can do it all for me? What is your answer to that question?
Absolutely.
Has it changed since you've given the talk?
I think it changes in the sense of what your goals are. I think if you want to be a creator or in the influencer space, basically, short answer, both. You definitely should still do a creative career, regardless. But I think there's definitely a difference between if you are using if you want to be like an animator or whatever as a hobby versus if you want to be an influencer or create a personal brand or whatever, there's a difference because like, yes, right now you can still compete with AI by utilizing other areas and, kind of skill acquisition and that kind of thing, and doubling down into being imperfect and creating content and showing behind the scenes. But if you don't want to be that kind of person and putting your work out on the internet and that isn't your goal, I can see why AI is like super detrimental to your own like progress of like wanting to start a new skill, because it's almost you don't have this incentive of like building a brand or like doing a personal brand or being a content creator or being a YouTuber. It then takes a big hit on your mentals because it's like, well, I just did it for fun. And in that sense, you absolutely still can do, your things for fun. You just have to prioritize the process. Like that has to be your main reason as to why you're doing it, because you will very quickly stop doing things if you don't have this incentive of building a brand or building IP. And the issue with AI is like AI makes content creation cheap, fast, and like limitless. So in a world where everything is like limitless and infinite, what becomes important is kind of ownership and IP. And because everything's so infinite now, it's like what you own becomes valuable now. And so if you're not in that space, that's where it becomes a bit risky, because now if ownership is what's important when everything's infinite, your hobbies become like this like commodity in a weird way, where it's like you feel like it's been taken over by having to make your hobby into a business. If you don't want to do that, then you really do have to kind of black out all this like things that's going on and just prioritize your own improvements of, am I better than yesterday, not am I better than the latest AI update.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what? Okay, this is going to get deep, so I hope everyone's ready. We were having this conversation yesterday about what makes a piece of art enjoyable for you to consume as a person, whether if it's a film, whether if it's a book, an essay, anything that can convey a certain emotion when you read it, when you listen to it, when you watch it. And this has been even more interesting to look at because we're now watching some of the old films that we've loved. Yeah. Terminator. We started watching that again. We're going to do Lord of the Rings and all these films that have lasted for decades and will probably last for a very, very long time. Yeah. What is the difference between these films and the films that we're seeing today? Because from the most amount of people that I listen to, they're not really enjoying a lot of the films that are being released today. And I think it has to do with intention. Yeah. I think when people were making films 20 years ago, the entire team's intention was to pour as much passion and love behind the storytelling, behind the visual effects. There was a reason behind everything. Yes. Profit was probably not the first intention. Yeah. Whereas now, I feel like with a lot of the films, we're getting profit as the first intention, and then comes storytelling and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so I want to tie this back to AI because I have seen an incredible amount of portfolios on Instagram filled with mid-journey photos. They're perfect in every definition of the word.
Yeah.
But I don't give a fuck. When I watch that Instagram page, I couldn't care less.
Yes.
Everything's just too perfect.
Yeah.
And the intention behind it is non-existent. The AI didn't have an intention.
Yeah.
And the person who was prompting those images probably didn't have much intention either. Like, okay, girl with beautiful hair and great cinematic lighting.
Yeah.
Whereas James Cameron or Steven Spielberg, like all these guys spending years developing the stories, the colors, the cinematography, the composition, it was intention.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, surely AI is very scary. Yes, it can produce flawless output at scale and at speeds that no human can.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the optimistic side is because the intention is not there, we will never feel the same way as humans when we consume purely AI content versus if a human made it with intention.
Well, I think that's why we're seeing that kind of, like I was saying on the talk, like this pendulum swinging the other way, because I completely agree. It feels like the reason that we have this almost like nostalgia factor of these movies and content that, you know, back when we were young, we used to watch, is because the value came from internal and now the value is kind of external.
Yes.
Like it's very, what are other people, how is this movie compared to the sellout ratings of another movie? It's become this like external fight of like, how are we perceived better rather than this internal value of like, how can I make the best movie that I can possibly make based on my interests or like whatever I'm kind of passionate about. It started off as like this internal passion has become very external, where it's like everyone's comparing against each other. And as a result, we feel that in the content that's being created. And I think AI, again, like you said about the portfolios, is contributing to that feeling of like you're comparing yourself against work from this very kind of external level of like, how does this look? And not ever actually realizing what makes amazing artwork is what you've brought to the table. It's the value you're bringing to the artwork can be seen through the artwork. It's why it feels like right now a lot of people are prioritizing following content creators that are showing how they make things, because that human effort behind things adds value to the content you're watching. You're now watching it with this extra layer of value that you perhaps wouldn't have added. Like you might have watched an animation before, scrolled on Instagram, but then you watch him create it and then you saw the outcome, and all of a sudden your perception of that animation is entirely different because now you feel involved with the creator, you feel like there's passion behind it, and you're seeing the exact same content but from an entirely different angle. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing as what's happening. It's like if we're not seeing this human love and effort behind this content, and you're pure, and you know these big like Disney are making just movies of like the Lion King.
Sequels and then remakes.
Sequels. It's basically the same thing as saying like you're not seeing the behind the scenes, like that passion convert into the animation. You're seeing a studio redo it because they know it's popular. And so you are... The intention, the value is completely different. And it's why you're then getting content like Flow, like that Blender animated show that you know has effort and love and whatever behind it, that it's this weird level of value that it's invisible, but everyone knows it and feels it. Right. That you almost want to like get behind it and support that thing, whereas you don't get that, but get behind it to make The Lion King 2 or whatever. No. You don't, even though there is such like a fan base, it's weird because you'd assume that feeling of love would be behind it because of the nostalgia factor of like Lion King 1 or whatever, but people just know the intention or like the value is external and not based on like love and like creation. Do you guys,
I know you do you believe in energies? Okay, you do as well, right? Okay, what if, okay, so the behind the scenes, I totally agree. Like when you know the behind the scenes, when you see it, it gives you so much more of a reason to love that piece of work because you see the pain and the suffering that the guys went through. We even did that for our Unreal Engine course. Like we had 3 vlogs showing our pain and suffering, making the course because we wanted people to know how much effort we're putting in, and people connected with it.
Yes.
But sometimes when you're watching films, you don't even see the behind the scenes. You just watch a film and you connect with it. And I think it has to do with energy. I mean, I was thinking about it yesterday. There is no other reason, at least in my mind, that there is a subliminal message. So it at a level below the conscious awareness, that when an artist, again, any kind of artist, is making a piece of art, if they're experiencing pain, if they're experiencing anger or happiness and joy, whatever they're feeling, I feel like that energy goes into the piece of art. And when you're consuming it as a viewer, you will feel that. Rocky, Sylvester Stallone, he was almost living on the streets. He had to sell his dog to make the film, and then he had to go buy back his dog when the film made money. But the pain that he was going through, he was probably pouring all of that into the character, into the film. And when you watch the film, I mean, everyone loved the Rocky, and everyone rocked Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, and became like a worldwide phenomenon.
I wish I knew the director I watched the video for, but to back what you're saying, there was a director that was saying how when she picks out what she wants to go in the movie, she's working out what do I want in the movie, and then trying to ensure that fits in, and the kind of the connecting areas of, you start off with everything you want and that you love and passionate about, and then you try and make these connections, like these little things to make everything flow nicely between them, but you can't expand those out too big because the audience will know that you haven't put passion into that. So it's kind of like the areas that you need to make the areas that you are really passionate about the biggest chunk, because the audience subliminally know that it kind of goes through in the art. Because in the same way, like a movie is very much like a very visceral piece of artwork. You're getting writers and lots of different artists combined together to create this like one form. And so if there's no like passion and love behind it, there's a lot of areas that could fall flat. The writing could easily show it, even though the visuals look amazing. It's like there's something wrong. It's almost like this uncanny valley of just the writing process or like the storytelling process. But yeah, completely agree.
If you're enjoying this conversation, we just wanted to remind you that we come back to you every single Tuesday with another episode of the Bad Decisions podcast.
It will be available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Now back to the conversation.
I think that's the thing, though, that is keeping me more optimistic, knowing that a lot of what we're going to see, not just with art, but also with content, because I want us to talk about personal branding as well, is that we're going to see a lot of the same shit. Like when it comes to movies, books probably, because people are going to use ChatGPT. They're already doing it, by the way, to write their books. When it comes to content as well, like we're going to see so many AI influencers that look the same, that are going to talk the same, and are going to report the same goddamn thing. And I think being absolutely 100% you is going to be the reason you will win.
I completely agree.
Which is also difficult because a lot of people are afraid to show the 100% of themselves online. How did you figure out a way to show yourself online, perhaps without fear, or maybe you have the fear still and you're fighting it?
Well, the way how I got on Instagram in the way that it kind of grew over the last 2 years wasn't like I wasn't intentionally going on there to build a personal brand. I was so scared of posting my stuff online about a year and a half ago that it was, again, this thing that I was talking about earlier of like understanding what you're fearful at and using that as like this goal. I knew I was like absolutely terrified of posting on Instagram. So I knew it was something I needed to fix. And my way of fixing it was, have you ever heard of the 75 hard challenge? Like the fitness challenge. So I did that before this new Instagram thing. And then I was like, oh, that was like kind of hard. And it got over that feeling of like, running always starts off as hard, but then you do it often enough that it becomes a bit of a habit. I was like, I wanted to then do this in a different fear. And my other fear was Instagram. And my Instagram was pretty much dormant for years, purely for that reason. I was doing a lot of the cold email outreach and whatever, and it was fine. I was getting work in just behind the scenes, but I was not posting on Instagram. So I put the 75 hard challenge kind of structure into Instagram. And so I was like, you know what? I just have to, regardless of what the content is, I just have to post for 75 days in a row, some kind of Instagram
Daily content.
daily
basically.
content,
Yeah.
and it forced me out of the mentality of like
No decision. You cannot make a decision.
You can't,
It's a
yeah.
non-negotiable. I'm posting every day for 75 days.
Yes.
And that removing of the decision will remove decision fatigue, which means you're 100% concentrated on the work, and you have to force yourself to not give a shit.
And and to answer what you were saying, it's like, and it forced me to have to show my true self because I had no other choice.
Yeah.
So it was like, it wasn't like an intentional thing. It was more like, oh damn, I don't have any time this evening. I like have to do something.
Yeah.
So let's quickly do a voiceover or whatever. And it was like that getting me out of that like perfectionism mindset was the greatest thing about that 75 days, because I ended up doing it for a whole year of every day.
Every day.
Yeah, yeah.
So what sort of content was that? Were they talking heads or?
And so I was lucky in the sense that because I've been working with brands a lot behind the scenes, I had so much content that it was easier for me to then just like edit stuff every day and do like how I made things and whatever. So I wasn't having to make content for the day, but it allowed me to then future proof when I was doing the whole year to make content in like a few months I knew I could post. But yeah, at the time it was very much just like showing. At the beginning, obviously, I didn't know what Instagram would like, so I was just showing like end outcomes of animations.
Right.
And then when I started realizing that people enjoyed how I made things, like I don't necessarily want to be a kind of a teacher or whatever,
You're good at it, by the way.
I appreciate it. But it was just, it made me realize that people like knowing how you make things.
Of course, because that has value.
Because it has value,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I learned very quickly over that 75 days, like what Instagram appreciates and what people appreciate and where the attention is going. And kind of it then made me less worried about posting something that I didn't like because it still had some kind of value out of it. That the people were getting from it. And so it really did get me out of that headspace of like only posting things because it had to be perfect or making your grid look good. I really very quickly, that
doesn't
ended
matter.
very quick.
Yeah, we've never cared about the grid. I know a lot of people do care about the aesthetics. For us, it's more just 100% value.
Yes.
I was rubbing my eyes because I was about to like tear up. Not really, but it's so emotional because you're probably the 8th person who's come on this podcast now in 70 plus episodes that has started an everyday's journey and has found success in it.
Yeah.
And every single
every
time
single person, we
look
look
at each other, we're like, fucking hell. This is
It
just
works.
another proof because this is how we started.
Yes.
And we've had more than 7 guests or 8 guests, just like yourself, who come on the podcast and said, it's because of the everydays that I'm here today.
Yeah.
Some of them have continued doing the everydays, but most of them have stopped. But it's not about doing it forever. It's not an eternal project.
You have to you got to learn something out of it. And
Yeah.
that's what you bring forward. It's like I'm now posting like every other day. And it's not
Right.
because I need to post. It's more that I got what I got out of
Yeah.
it from
Exactly.
that year. I
That's the point.
understand.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, cool. I don't have to be, but in a weird way, if I had my old mentality, I'd be like, I have to do this every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah,
Like I'd be stuck in that oh, you're slacking off by like not.
The thing is, you grow out of it. Unless again your people and your goal is just to do the everydays.
Yes.
For me and Farhad, I mean the reason why you're in this podcast right now is because we started the everydays. Because the everydays was like this: everyday vlog, every week podcast.
Yeah.
Non-negotiable.
Yes.
Which meant that every day when we get up in the morning, we have to think about content. And
Yeah.
at that time, we had literally quite nothing entertaining in our lives at that
Yeah.
very moment. So we had to make something fun
Yes.
out of nothing.
Yep.
And that forced us to record videos. And in the beginning, it sounded silly and it looked silly. And I'm sure most of our friends made fun of us. Like I would make fun of us for those videos. But what we learned as a result is that we learned about consistency.
Yeah.
We learned that there is a reward that comes out of consistency. You learn things about yourself. You learn things about content creation because maybe day 1 to day 20, you suck. But then day 20, you start looking at YouTube videos of Mr. Beast and Casey Neistat and be like, okay, my video is getting 200 views now.
Yeah.
How can I make it 1,000?
Yeah.
And then you start applying every day one tiny thing, one tiny change that can make your content better. And this works for art as well, right? You can do everyday pieces of art.
Yeah.
For the first 20 days, just do whatever you're good at.
Yeah.
You don't have to improve. But then day 20, naturally, you'll get interested because
Yeah.
you probably get one comment.
It's the whole momentum thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A snowball effect.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why the everydays work, because if you're not doing everydays, if your why is not strong enough and you really don't have that giant desire to win, if your friend calls you and says, hey, let's go out on a Friday night and have a drink, you'll say yes.
Yeah.
But if the everyday is there, it's a no. Like
Yeah.
it's a no. Wait, how many no's do we say during the everydays?
All no's in 2021, I think. 2021 and 2022.
Yeah. Because the everydays had to keep going. But we broke it one day, and we had our reason because we were making our Unreal Engine MetaHuman tutorial, and that one video really needed some good scripting, so we spent 2 days to make that. And then the next video took 3 days. But we're fine with breaking the chain now because we've learned how to grow and we've learned content creation and we got what we wanted out of it.
Exactly. If you're just doing the chain for the sake of the chain, you're almost like not getting the point of like the everyday.
Exactly.
Because you could also spiral very quickly into being like, oh, I suck now because I broke the chain. I'm like, I'm not deserving or whatever. But it's like the whole like do something over, 3 years or 5 years or a decade is you have to be able to break the chain and also continue the day after.
Yes.
You can't go into like, oh, now I will never do this again because I've realized I can't do it. It's like breaking the chain is also a great thing because then it's how you're able to deal with that mentality or like that failure. How can you, even though it's not really failure, but in the sense of breaking a chain, it can be seen as like a failure. I failed this challenge. But it's like, have you really? Because then if you continued this over 3 years and that was, it'll be 1%, you know, it contributes to nothing. You've gained so much out of it. It's just breaking that lag time between when you fail something and getting back up. You have to reduce that as quick as possible, I think. And then you learn that only by breaking the chain.
Yeah. You grow out of it technically.
Yeah.
You grow out of it and you have a bigger challenge and you have a bigger task in hand, you will go for it.
Yep.
I want to ask about your process. When was the first paying client came after sending all this email?
It was a guy called Vandy. He has an account called Vandy the Pink. It was a cold email I sent out in January of, I think, like 2019. He was one of the first people that got back to my email 5 months after I'd sent it. Ooh. Yeah, so he replied saying he was an account that was doing a lot of bootleg Gucci like jackets for like Billie Eilish and whatever, and he was starting very. He had a following, but he was creating a new brand and he wanted to create a whole clothing line. And so I'd obviously loved his stuff previously and I'd reached out. He was one of the first people that ever got back, as well as a music industry label, which was Republic Records. That was another, that was my first ever like really big paying client that I had. Wait,
for Vandy?
Yes.
Did you email and you offered free job and then they said they will pay you or no at that time?
Yeah. That was, I offered, I don't remember what exactly I said in the email, but I sent my portfolio. I think I must have offered a free work, whatever. He was just interested in paying the first time around. So that was like an awesome kind of first paying customer client of them having faith in my work just from my portfolio. So that was them almost kind of bypassing that free thing and just being like, show me what you can do, we'll pay for it type vibes. Republic Records was for Pop Smoke. He released they were releasing his album after he died. Back in 2020 or 2019 or 2018, somewhere there. And they were my first ever like quick turnaround and higher paying client for like what I thought would be like a super cheap job or whatever. And it was like the first time I was like in the thousands of like that I realized that you could get paid for like an animation. And I was like, what?
Yeah, someone's paying me for all of this? It's such a great feeling.
When you play a video game, it's like you unlock this part of the map, you're like, wait a second, I can get paid this much? And after that, you're going to demand for that. That's going to be like your new minimum.
Exactly, especially after working for free for 8, and especially when I was converting from physical painting to 3D. So the only reason I did that conversion was I was spending like a whole month doing free work for the physical painting. And so I was like, I have to find some kind of thing in the background that I could be doing alongside my painting to make at least a bit more sustainable. I can keep going with the free painting strategy and getting, influencers to put it on their stories and growing my Instagram that way.
Right.
But I just needed something in the background also paying so it'd make the month feel more worth it. So I was just kind of like trying different things. So I was outreaching because I knew that you could get more a higher chance of a paying job through 3D animation than I did through paintings. And so that was like, one of the strategies was 3D animation. I tried affiliate marketing for a while. I realized very quickly that you need a following and you need like some kind of income to actually like have even just a website host. And at the time I had like zero income. So like even the £20 per month or whatever, I was like, bro, I can't do this. So affiliate marketing didn't work. I tried a bit of Amazon FBA, was trying... I was inventing products and trying to pitch it to people via email to see if someone would invest in some product design or whatever. I was just trying lots of areas to see what would have some kind of income come through. And that was where obviously then some of the cold emails that got back, being Vandy and Republic Records, were my first kind of foot into like actually a paying job. Republic Records, I'd reached out to them essentially saying that I could do animation. At that time, I couldn't. I could only do like still renders. I'd never ventured into animation before, but I was just kind of like firing lots of areas.
You'll figure it out later.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, and exactly. And it was like, that was like the craziest week ever because I had to, on the job, learn animation whilst trying to get an animation to the client. Yeah. And that, like we're talking about earlier, that pressure was a blessing in disguise because it meant that I got over that beginner mentality of animation very quickly because I had to do the animation. It was like there was no, which meant after the job was done, I was like, I like speed ran getting over that like fear of animation or like learning how to animate something really quickly. And then it felt a lot easier to then develop animation beyond that point because I got over that beginner's hurdle that a lot of people quit at in this like week and a half.
Right.
And, having to learn all the basics and whatever that normally you get bored and then you stop. It's like,
there is no way to be bored at this stage.
There's no way to be bored.
Someone is paying me and I have to learn it. And it's such a great thing when you had the confidence to say yes. Of course, not encouraging everybody to do that. But I think a lot of learnings come out of putting yourself in a uncomfortable situation.
Yes.
And I think if you wanted to learn the same process, the same animation without a paying client, probably would take you double the time or triple the time.
Because you then have to deal with your own self-doubt and your own internal thoughts and, I suck at this or whatever. I literally had no time to think about like internal self-doubt. I was like, I literally, like the way I'd do it during that week was I'd learn of an evening where I should be sleeping, which I don't recommend because I've definitely over the last couple of years realized how bad I was in terms of seeing sleep as like this extra hours I could get in my day.
We do the same thing.
And I'm like, dude, like I don't need 8 hours. I could get an extra 2 hours.
5 or 6 is enough.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I do not suggest doing that. But
that's what got you here, though, right?
Yeah, that's why it's such like such a weird toxic cycle because it's like all the indicators were like this is what this works, so this should be the way you do things, but you do have to adapt because you can't, like, again, the whole momentum thing. I'd die if I did that over.
It's just in the beginning. I feel in the beginning it makes sense that even
no, but
the
there are
animating
bouts,
bits that I was laughing at while you guys were talking is because I just realized the whole industry of animation and all this stuff is built by the back of all of us artists lying in the beginning. Even for us, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
I had to say we can cover the animation, and I remember the first time I got into it, I was like, I have no fucking clue how this works. So I started going to Mixamo. That was the first time. When to Mixamo, I'm like, I can connect the run to the jump. Do you remember the running and the jumping over the woods? We did one animation. So you kind of have to also be kind of delusional in the beginning if you want to succeed.
Yeah.
But over time, as you start building evidence for yourself and you start finding success, then you don't have to lie about your skills and you don't have to say you can do something if you can't. But in the beginning, you kind of have to because you don't want to say no to the jobs.
Yeah.
We talked about this with Nicola last week, if you remember, who's the founder of Autodesk Flow Studio.
Yeah.
Same thing for him. He said, when I started out in my career, I told people I can do After Effects and all these things, and he couldn't. Yeah. And he figured it out.
Yes.
As long as you have the ability and the commitment to figure it out.
Yes.
then you can cover it up a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a superpower because, again, you're kind of like stacking up the belief in yourself that you can just like tackle it even if it fails, or it's just the act of like doing is just more important than worrying about, you know, whether you can do the thing or not. You just have to like act on it. And yeah, it was like in a lot of aspects, even though it's like toxic behavior to be like, oh yeah, I can disregard my sleep and learn of an evening and then do the work in the day, because that was how I managed that week. Was my evenings would be watching tutorials and learning, and then when I'd wake up, it was like I had to act on what I'd just learned the night before,
right.
And it was like, you know, that is probably a really awful way to go about things.
But that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I was telling Faraz when we were looking out for our producer, any movie that is out there and it's good, if you talk to the crew, nobody will say that we had 12 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect sleep.
Perfect sleep. Everybody said it was crunch time. Everybody said we had to wake up at 5 a.m., go to the makeup, stay there for 6 hours, go to the snow. This is Lord of the Rings. They had to record for 12 hours, go back the next day, the same thing for 90 days.
Yeah.
And the result is out there.
Yeah.
I think there is a cycle in everyone's career. There are times that you have to put in the effort. There are times that are sacrifices required.
Yeah.
There are times that you will lose sleep, you will lose going out, you will lose healthy eating habits, you will lose your gym. The time you have to manage your project and you have to deliver. When that time passes by, you can go back in your rhythm. Especially if you're starting out, I think you will have more of these period in your time. And the more your career grows, the more your team expands, then you have more opportunity, then you have more chances to, okay, now I can have my sleep, I can have my social life. But in the beginning, I think it's super important.
I will also add to this, going back to your point as well, I think if you learn more about yourself and understand that it's about the journey and not the destination, and find out what you actually love. Because sometimes in the beginning, I'd feel bad about saying no to some friends and not going out. And then I would do my cycle of working really hard, feeling guilt that I said no, and feeling the discomfort that if I went out, it would have been fun.
Yeah.
But then eventually I finish a cycle, I go out with my friends, I'm like, okay, this was fun. 1 time, 2 times. I actually want to go back to work. Like this journey of the pain and suffering is actually what I like.
Yes.
And this is where I want to spend most of my time.
Yeah.
And I think figuring that out and understanding that the everyday can be joyful.
Yeah.
And you don't look at the pain as a thing that is just
like a
making you
threat.
suffer. Yeah, it's more of when you go to the gym. Like we're addicted to going to the gym. It's painful every single time you lift. But there is pleasure with the pain.
Yes.
Because you know what you're going to get out of it. Your muscles are going to grow. You're going to look better. You're going to feel better.
Yes.
And so eventually the pain turns into a pleasure in a weird way.
Well, exactly. And that's how I've always now kind of make decisions is like in life, you're always going to have hard. Like if you don't go to the gym, your hard will be, you know, feeling bad about the state that you're in or whatever. You know, if you don't follow your dreams, the hard will be living a life that you don't want to live or like being stuck in a job. So if hard is like inevitable, having confidence in the fact that you can control which hard to pick, I love, because I'm like, if the outcome is hard either way, it's like pick the hard that you decide over, because then you have like your why becomes a lot more clearer, because on times where, you know, you're demotivated, it's not like life is throwing these challenges at you. You've thrown these challenges at yourself. So it's like it's based on a foundation that allows you to keep going, because you're aligned with why you're doing it, because you've chosen it. And so it's like if you think about how to build like the most optimal human of mankind, you wouldn't put them through comfort. Like if we were considering like that it was like not a human and it's just something we could like, you know, test on, you'd put it through, you know, pain, suffering or whatever in order for it to be its peak condition. And that's not to say you should be, you know, only going through pain and suffering or whatever, but it shows that the struggles is kind of what makes you appreciate a lot of things. It makes you good at things. The hard is how you improve. It's like it shouldn't be a deterrence, because in a weird paradigm, if you were complete comfort and you were only eating like cake every day, cake then becomes like not a treat anymore. You know, cake is so cake. Like we love cake because
You clearly love cake.
I do love cake.
Oh, okay. What kind of cake? Cheesecake?
I can see it the moment she started talking about cake. She's like, cake is, I love cake.
Well, it's just like you only appreciate the cake once you've like been in this like a period of like not having it for ages. That
Right.
it's like having it then becomes why it's good. Whereas
It's
if
okay,
you
Jess.
have
We
it
can
every
get you
day-
some cake.
I
Can we
appreciate it.
order some
Yeah,
cake for this? But I completely understand. I think the rarity of it is what makes it
Yeah,
special.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There is a reason why people love diamonds. They're rare. If everybody had diamonds, it wouldn't be so interesting
Yeah.
anymore. What was the biggest job that you've ever done? The one that you're most proud of?
In terms of like,
Not money wise, more about
Value to you.
value to yourself or
Oh,
what it
that's a-
has done to people.
that's a great question. You know, I think it's in a weird way. I learned very quickly that I don't get a lot of value from doing stuff for like big clients, like, you know, brands that you think are like really high up. I mean, back when I was young, those were like aspirational people or like influencers or whatever. I used to think of like that was like the end goal. I learned very quickly that a lot of these people behind these companies are just like you and me and whatever. And it made the reality check hit quick that, you know, no one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that was very cool to have that experience very young because it then made me almost not value those kind of jobs anymore. And the jobs that I valued a lot more were kind of ones that would give me a lot more creative freedom. I had a lot more ability to, you know, have cool conversations with people. I think I then appreciated like people more, and in a weird way, I'd probably say the YouTubers that I met last year, which is why I'm going to Australia, were kind of that value hit for me. Was like I actually got value out of, you know, friendship and connection with people and human connection and understanding how to, you know, build momentum long term. And even the people I met in Blender, I think just like meeting these amazing people are rather than these people that you think should be amazing and pedestaling, you know, people that actually give you awesome energy, awesome feedback, feel like you can bounce work between and there's kind of this like synergy. Those are the kind of the projects that I really love. And I also just love at the moment just like building personal brand and like building my own thing gives me a lot of value. And because it's all based on what I enjoy and going into it without kind of like having to work for someone or having to be within a brief. The biggest value I get is working on your own thing and setting your own goals and having this kind of like internal goal cycle going rather than having to focus on what other people think.
Do you balance between client work and then working on passion project?
Yeah, so I am at the moment. Client work has become now something that I'm trying to like phase out of. So it's been a very big chunk of my life. So I did painting at the very beginning, free painting, tried to intertwine payment of 3D animations as a way to compensate the free painting. Then I went very much into 3D animation for brands, so like Billionaire Boys Club, Reebok, Nike, those kind of brands. Then it kind of
This is for their commercials and ads.
Yeah, commercials.
Right.
So there'd be like Instagram content. Very much ads, very client, like ad based. Then I went into the music industry because it was a lot more fast paced and also was great for building your portfolio of names quickly. I realized very quickly though, after doing that space for like a year, that it was awful for like my mentors because it was just like fast paced. The music industry is harsh as hell. And so it was like fast paced, kind of low pay for what you're doing.
It's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. Very low pay, in fact, for what you're doing. And also the timelines were cooked. Like they wanted, you know, Doja Cat would be performing on the evening. Maybe they tested it on the studio in the morning and then they wanted a new animation by the same evening. And I'm like, oh my God.
Are you serious?
Yeah, are you serious? And I had to flip my whole sleep schedule around to American time zone because they're all LA based. And so it was just like a cauldron to burn out quick. And so that was also when, and I've always been really interested in kind of how tech is upgrading or whatever. So that was when that NFT phase kind of came around 2021, 2020-ish. And it was just, I just kind of follow my curiosity is kind of how I've got to the position I'm in right now. Is like, I just kept following. So after I phased out of the music industry, went into kind of NFTs, and was just kind of listening into how I found it really interesting about how like digital items that weren't physically tangible had value. Same way like a blue check mark on Instagram isn't something you can hold, but we see it as valuable.
Right.
Yeah, almost like a currency. And I found that super interesting. And like that was a phase then in my life of trying to scale IP and learn how I can build like a brand in that space of like digital products and trying to scale companies. And then I went into the influencer space, started working for the Sidemen last year and the year before. So I probably worked with them over like a year and a bit. And I found that space a lot more rewarding in terms of having greater creative freedom, because influencers are kind of like me anyway. It's like they came from, you know, that underdog mentality, and they're kind of just following their curiosity and just you know, following their interests. And so they appreciate a lot more of the art behind content creation, which I found really cool, because the ad space you feel like is like the peak of what you want to do, or like you want to work for these big brands or these studios or like Marvel or whatever, but then you realize that a lot of that is just becoming like a drone to the brief, and you don't actually get much creative freedom. So yeah, then I went into the influencer space, and all of these things just combined, being in the NFT space, understanding how to build a business quickly and how to manage humans and how to manage contracts and developers and Discord mods, and how to build attention and scale products and get products out there and how to manufacture it. And then like working the influencer space and understanding content creation and intention, being in the music industry, learning how to be quick with how to make things, how to deal with merchandising, how to deal with that. It's just everything combined then made sense to like take everything I've ever learned and then put it in my own thing. Because I kind of felt like I had a puzzle piece from each area that then I'm in a position now to scale back on client work because of the kind of the years that I've been put into actually making money. I can now like take a stop from making money and prioritize just like being as risk averse as I possibly can and just take risks. And so that's kind of the space I'm in right now, where I'm kind of I'm dipping my toes in areas that I'm interested in. I'm wanting to work out what I want to spend the next like 5 years building or 3 years building, and take everything I've ever learned and really just funnel it into one thing.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's kind of this position I'm in right now, where I'm just trying to be as risky as I possibly can. And again, like just not have regret when I'm older of being like, especially when I don't have responsibility, being aware of like my situation and like, you know, I don't have a mortgage and I have kids or whatever, that I'm like, okay, like that's just, I don't want to think, oh, I didn't try this thing when I was younger. I just want to find out.
You don't want to have regret.
Yeah.
No. I wanted to ask you something. Do you want any drinks from the Bad Decisions bar? Do you want anything?
I'm good, actually.
You're good? Okay.
Yeah.
Farah, you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good on water.
I want to talk to you about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So many artists don't know how to deal with it. So many artists experience it.
Yeah.
They feel like they don't deserve what they're earning, whether it's the monetary factor of it or whether it's the status, whatever it is. They just don't deserve, they don't feel like they deserve the spot they're in.
Yeah.
Have you ever had imposter syndrome?
Every single day.
Every single day?
Yeah, every single day. I think if I let myself like dwindle in my own thoughts, it will go straight back to like my childhood like way of how I started. It will go back to its default structure of self-doubt. I think all my internal motivation has always stemmed from self-doubt. It's that has been like this weird drive of I have to prove myself that I can do it, otherwise I'll go very quickly into feeling like I can't do it. So it then turned into this drive of like constantly having to be better than myself, which was a good, and I think that's where, you know, a negative can be a positive. It's like having imposter syndrome doesn't mean that you know, become the label and you become, you know, everything you think about yourself. It turn that negative energy still into energy of like proving yourself that you can do things. Or, you know, in a weird way, it's also something that you should realize is very human. And like a lot of people are going to have these kind of thoughts that they can't do things. And it's not you're not by yourself in thinking that way. I think a lot of artists come from a position of feeling like they don't deserve it, and you just it's this constant battle of proving yourself that you can do things and you can deserve it. And in a weird way, if you recognize that you have it, it's kind of the same way like a evil person, if it starts to question if they're evil, are they actually truly evil? If they start questioning it, it's like the same kind of thing with like imposter syndrome, where it's like you realize that you have these negative things, which in turn means that you want to get better. It's a chain reaction if you put the energy in the right place and don't spiral down with the label, I think.
I was watching this psychologist talk about imposter syndrome, and he said that there's one group that doesn't actually feel like an imposter, and those are the actual imposters. They're the only ones who actually feel like they deserve to be in the position that they are in. And he said that when they analyzed most people who are actually very successful, they all have imposter syndrome because they see the good and the bad. They see what they're good at and they see what they're bad at.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they don't understand that they're the only ones who have that full visibility of the landscape. People just see what you're good at because that's what you're putting up on social media. So all the negative stuff, it's all in your own head.
Yeah.
And people don't see that. But you can drive yourself mad with the negative thoughts. And that's when you need to have self-control. You need to be able to take what you just said, your thoughts, which are supposed to be productive because they're showing you what you're bad at so that you can improve.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't let that stop you from your path.
Well, that's why like when it was super hard to ignore those thoughts when I was a lot younger, I just used to listen to podcasts all the time because it was like that in a way was like becoming my new thoughts.
Right.
I was listening to other people tell me things. And so I almost was like, as soon as you get off those podcasts, you then have those thoughts in your head and you just start acting almost instantly because you've kind of like infiltrated your own thoughts with other people's thoughts. And so that was like my short-term way of dealing with it back then. I think over time, obviously you get better at understanding yourself and you become a lot more self-aware about how you do things and how to mitigate against it and how to deal with whatever. But at the beginning, it was super handy just to like almost ignore my way I think about things and just, blast it with other people that had become successful and just listen to what they were saying and try and at least see if there was some kind of truth behind it. And then when you start realizing and that kind of that evidence stack in your head, as soon as you start building that stack, you then have your own system to fall back on instead of the podcasts. You start building your own system of like, okay, horrible thought in my head. I have evidence that you're wrong.
Yeah.
So
and you're going to pick up the sword and the shield and start going to fight with it.
Yeah.
Quite literally. I mean, it does feel like that. Sometimes we even talk to ourselves and we're like, okay, pick up the sword and the shield. We're going to fight. Because the thoughts will come at you.
Yeah.
And one thing your brain is really good at is throwing like hundreds of thoughts at one go. And if you're smarter, those can be thousands of thoughts at one go. So it's kind of a pain if you're a smarter person because you have to deal with a lot of overthinking. And I feel like sometimes we say this, it's kind of funny. People who, I don't mean any offense to anybody, but people who are dumb sometimes can achieve great things because they don't overthink.
Well, it's that naivety, just going in it without worrying about if it's going to be hard or not.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, is a superpower because it means you just do it.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, the only thing that's actually going to get you to do the thing is doing the thing, right?
Yes.
So it's like the overthinking mindset is the biggest hindrance of mankind to like actually improve. But everyone gets stuck behind it. If you're by yourself in your bedroom, it's the only thing you do think is overthink everything because there's no other heads that you're in. You're not, unless I was listening to other people, I would be in a very big procrastination cycle. I'm sure of it because I would be exactly that, not starting, worrying and overthinking that I don't have enough stuff to start or whatever. But doing the thing is the only thing that's going to, get you to actually begin and get that feedback of, failing is and I think that's the sad thing about the school system is like the school system teaches you that failure is kind of a direct indicator of if you're bad or good at something. It's like one or the other. And if you put that system into building anything outside of school, it falls straight on its head. It means you do something, you fail at it, and then you think that that's how you are in that subject, or that's how you are. You just are bad. And it's the quicker you realize that if you fail faster, you almost get like data. It's like as soon as you take this like self-worth thing out of the equation, you start just seeing doing things as data points rather than if it's good or bad. It's like that just becomes failing quick just becomes like a necessity. You have to, because then you get better quicker and then you'll reach success way quicker. I'd rather find out tomorrow that the thing I was going to work on isn't the right thing than overthink for a month and then get the same outcome a month later. Or like for some people 5 years later because they didn't start it and because they were worried about starting because they could fail. It's like, no, fail now. So then you realize if you should or shouldn't, you know,
you
work
don't
on
have
something.
to think about it after that.
Yeah.
If you just start doing it, the best part about it is the thoughts are not with you anymore. You either know you fail or you succeed, and then you can move on right after that.
Yeah.
Speaking of doing the thing, what is your creative process when you are working on a project?
It's it very much varies depending on what I'm doing. But I always start off with kind of an idea that I'm curious about enough for it to then move into the phase of like sketching it out or actually putting some hours into, putting the idea into some kind of visual. I think to get to the point of knowing whether an idea is worth kind of going forwards is very much a gut feeling, which is something you can't really decipher whether you just have that sense of like, I'm curious about this thing. I kind of see it more as like, you know, in your life, you're almost like got fractured glass everywhere and you're going around with or fractured metal and you're going around with a little metal detector and so you get a little beep over an area, you kind of go into that. And it's like, you don't actually know whether it's going to work out or not, but follow the curiosity to begin with. I always go into kind of a sketch phase where I'm just kind of drawing or looking online of inspiration of things that are like similar or avenues. Because I think you can learn a great deal from people that have gone through similar paths, obviously, because like they have, gone through this, whatever. I mean, everyone's done everything, in life in general. So there's always someone that you can base some kind of like way of how to build something from. So I'll go down kind of this research path, but you have to also be careful not to stay in that research phase for too long, because that could then quickly turn into procrastination and not actually starting. But I also think it is important to have some kind of knowledge on the area you're about to begin. So it's like this weird like line where you cross it and you realize you're now just procrastinating and not beginning. But I do enjoy kind of that research phase in seeing whether people have done the thing that I'm now trying to go into. How can I adapt it in a different way? How can I bring two ways that someone else has done it and someone else together to create a new way? And I also, so then I'll kind of be in that phase for a bit. Then depending on, it really depends. If I'm doing like manufacturing a product or whatever, then obviously you go into like technical drawings, then that turns into back and forth of manufacturing and sending a product. Or if it goes into animation, I'll block things out as fast as possible. I think is the start as quick as possible, because that like blank canvas mentality can also get you stuck in feeling like you can't do something. I think blocking down things as quick as possible gets you into that like, I have something.
And that reward helps you keep going.
Yes, it builds that momentum. So it's easier said than done. I've been plenty of times where I've got stuck in like feeling like I can't do things, and I have to just keep like gaslighting myself, being like, okay, like you have to do this.
You have to do it. Try it.
yeah. It's like it's obviously it's easier for me to just be like, oh yeah, do it. And I definitely am also a hypocrite to this kind of thing. I mean, that's what makes you human. Is like you fall in and out of these phases of feeling like you can do something and feeling like you can't. But I think as a general rule, starting something as fast as possible and limiting that lag time between having an idea and working on it is what you should like prioritize, as opposed to only starting when you feel like you're good enough. I think that is like an awful headspace, and it can get you into that headspace as soon as you start researching other people, which is why it's a bit sketchy to be like, you should research, but don't over research.
Until you're like, why is everyone so much better than me? I cannot do this.
do something similar. of how you balance this analysis paralysis.
That's why
through
deadlines are
planning.
good.
That's
Yes.
If you
exactly.
don't have deadlines, you can easily go and pass that line.
Exactly. And that's why in like the creative industries, having a creative bubble that you stay within oftentimes makes you more creative because you're thinking of ways that you wouldn't have thought before within this constraint.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things like I learn nowadays, even though I have a good PC now, a lot of the methods that I went about building stuff is because I was in a constraint of a really bad computer. And so I had to learn other ways of doing
Like
things.
smart ways to do things,
smarter way
yeah.
of doing things. And I wouldn't have done it that way if I just spawned with a 5090, you know. I'd have never have learned ways of building textures in like a fast-paced way or building anything, just doing anything. It applies in literally any skill. It's like constraints aren't your enemy.
No.
They're
Your friends. They're your best friends.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you learn such a great deal from working out how to do something within something because you're a lot more creative in the sense that you have to work around things and having, the best. It's like the whole comfort argument we were talking about earlier, building like the peak human. Like if they just were allowed everything, they probably wouldn't progress, you know? It's like you have to give them constraints and like hardship and struggle in order for improvement to happen quickly. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there and not ever work on things because you have infinite time. That's also why death is like a weird thing. It's like knowing that your time is like short means that you have to act on things. You can't just like wait another 200 years and then maybe test out something that you were
I think
putting off.
mortality is probably the best thing that we have.
Yeah.
Because,
Brian Johnson wouldn't agree.
yeah, no.
Yeah,
So
literally.
he's trying to extend his life. Maybe he's going to be immortal. I don't know, with technology. But I think the whole point of life, because when I was a kid, I used to always say, why don't we just live forever? That would have been fun, I guess. As a kid, that's what I thought. But I realize now everything's there because we are mortal.
Yeah, it gives purpose to everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because then there is pain and suffering because we know we're going to die.
Yeah.
And because there's pain, we have happiness. Like there's no light without dark. There's no dark without light. And so, again, that's why a deadline, I mean, it's two different topics. So a deadline is also very important because without a deadline, none of the things that you're going to discover during the project are actually going to manifest themselves. It's the pain of having to deliver something in a week that is going to get you to think of creative ways to do things. I want to ask one business related questions because you work on so many different things. And for a lot of artists who want to come up, especially now with AI, they don't know what to get into. They don't know which path to take. In terms of ROI, just return on investment, which of the things that you've done have brought you the most value?
There's a difference, I think, right now between what's giving value now and what I think is going to give value in like the future.
I would like to know both.
Okay, so I'd say in terms of ROI of being a 3D artist, I'd say probably NFTs was like a crazy period for artists, but that was also a very flawed kind of period of time.
And also it's limited. It's
very
not,
limited.
It doesn't last.
No, absolutely.
Something more everlasting, something that people can take advice from right now.
No, okay, yeah. In terms of how I'm kind of perceiving what I want to go into in the future, it's like very much in the span of IP. So growing IP, like I was saying earlier, when AI is creating kind of fast, infinite, and like cheap content, it's like what you own then becomes really valuable. So IP, and that doesn't also necessarily need to be like a brand or whatever. Your IP can be your own. You can be yourself. It's kind of the reason you're seeing, Logan Paul and KSI create Prime. You're seeing these Mr. Beasts and
Feastables and all that,
whatever. They're building something that's going to outlive them, and AI in a weird way contributes to helping. I mean, if you saw an AI image of Pikachu, you don't think that Pikachu was invented yesterday because of the image. It's like it already has its value, and therefore AI isn't taken away from it. It's just adding to what's already been built. So I think the future of business is going to be very much in ownership and owning your own, whether it be a YouTube channel or owning your own IP, like being your own Dude Perfect, being your own Mr. Beasts. Content creators right now already have that kind of power over businesses because people are prioritizing now a lot more imperfect things. So content creators have that kind of leverage over like a perfect business. And like Nike or Adidas are now partnering with a lot of Instagram creators to create capsules of clothing with or whatever, because they're seeing the value in communities. I think that's also the thing, is incubating communities in like the next 10 years, and IRL events and actual human connection is going to be like super scalable, and people are going to prioritize feeling a part of something as opposed to, being an outsider just scrolling on this like huge dopamine train that we're all on right now with TikTok and Instagram. And so it's really hard to say like what will be the biggest value, but I just know it's going to be in that space of like community building, whether it be, your own personal brand, scaling IP, building a product that you develop from scratch, and you're sharing the process online as openly as possible. I also think it's cool right now that artists, like it's hard to see, artists feel like their power's being taken away from them from AI images, and a lot of developers, instead of hiring artists, they're just creating their own thing. But I also think a lot of people aren't delving into the reverse, which I think is awesome, is if you're an artist right now, AI is allowing you to be your own developer. It's allowing you to be your own engineer. It's allowing you to start on things without the friction of, and also it's not like, there's no like moral issues with that, because it's data and coding, which is like just based on just calculations. You're just using a smart calculator. And so it's cool because it means that you can stay in this creative bubble, but now you have less friction to scale any idea, and you don't need a team behind you anymore. You don't need necessarily a Kickstarter funding. I can have an idea today, go use Blender free, create like a visual deck of how this idea could look. I could then go into Lovable, build an app based on the thing, start vibe coding. There's someone that I was speaking to from the artifacts team, which kind of created artifacts in a similar way of like having an idea, and it was able to internally engineer their own product. It's like, it's so awesome the fact that AI is actually giving, but isn't being utilized right now, is artists can use AI in the reverse of what's happening. And they can engineer their own products. They can buy Raspberry Pi mechanics and build their own robot. And like and it's not being tapped into enough, I don't think. And I think that's going to be a hugely scalable market of like being able to, the next $1 billion companies might be just one girl in a bedroom, or one, kid who's just like in their bedroom right now, working out, vibe coding something.
100%.
And it's like that, you don't have to be a developer to you can be an artist, and the artists have leverage because you're actually put passion in, and it's not like it's the reverse is like a developer trying to be an artist is hard, because you can instantly tell. Now, that was the issue with NFTs. You can tell the people that weren't artists in that space. They were devs first that wanted to make money, and they just needed art as a secondary thing, and it became horrendous. And as a result, it's like you get this bad notion about it because of evidence of like there was a lot of people in the wrong headspace going at it at the wrong angle. But if you're an artist, you have this like visual identity already, and now you have the tools accessible to everyone to now turn that visual identity, brand, be it product, be it a tech app or whatever, and you can make it a real thing, and you can build it publicly and free, and Instagram is free to post, and in maybe 5 years' time it might not be free to post. It's like you really have, and in a weird way, because we have everything accessible right now, it can stop people from starting because it feels very overwhelming. But at the same time, it's also the biggest leverage right now is the fact that you can be your own studio. You don't have to be a studio anymore. You can be a one-person team because you have everything available to you right now. So I think that's what I think is going to be the biggest value is I'll have an idea one day. I'd turn it into a pitch deck and just start acting on it, and not having this like gap between the pitch deck and now having to wait for funding or wait for a VC or wait for whatever. You can just start, even if it's like a hobby or whatever, just start working out how to build it. By vlogging yourself doing it on Instagram, build it into a series. You will then start seeing that people are interested in how you're building this. You start gathering an audience. Then that audience to big companies becomes valuable because a lot of people
You got attention.
because you have attention, and attention, like I was saying, is like the new economy of like growing a community is the new value. And so when you start having a community that value you then become, as a result, valuable to businesses that then want to fund you. So it kind of has this like domino effect of like, don't worry about what you want to do, just do it and make it as frictionless as possible for you to start. Don't worry about being perfect, just be flawed, and people will follow you because of that, especially in this AI era where it's like that is what's giving a lot of people this kind of IP, is like being true to themselves and failing in front of a camera is making the content a lot more valuable to watch, and you're as a result building a super strong community. It's why like, you know, these accounts on Instagram, if you're a clothing brand or whatever, they can sell out way quicker than like Nike, because even though they have like 1/100th of the audience,
They got storyline.
they have storyline. The 1/100th of the audience is way more passionate and like way more involved in buying from that creator, not because of the product, but because of the creator itself.
Yeah.
And that is where I think AI is taking a lot of artists. It's like you can now truly be yourself, and that is the biggest value. And just acting on what you want to pursue could lead to something. And if it doesn't, just then obviously fall back in client work and just do it that way, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. Is like, that is obviously what gives you the value of like, if you really want to pay your bills, it's like there are ads and whatever right now that, and a lot of client work that you can just like tap into, but just know at the back of your head, building something on the side can turn into your main thing quickly as soon as you start putting all your focus into it, which I think has been my biggest issue. Is like, I just keep dossing around. I really need to focus on like one thing.
You said something very interesting, and that is leveling the playing field. I think a lot of people are pessimistic about AI because they think that there are things that are being taken away from them.
Yeah.
But they don't look at the fact that that's happening to everyone at the same time, even the big companies.
Yep.
And it's actually the big companies that should be scared because now a small team of 5 people can develop the same application.
Yes.
The small team of 5 artists can develop the same fucking game.
Yep.
And I think people don't look at the positive and they're only looking at the negative. And another thing that I found really interesting, because I was thinking about it, a lot of people, going back to the question that you asked, is it even worth starting a creative career now that AI can do it all? I feel like just because everyone has access to do it doesn't mean they're going to do it. I'll give you an example. I was thinking about this the other day. If you told somebody who loved reading books 1,000 years ago, there will come a day where you'll have this device in your pocket that has all the books in the world. You don't have to go to the library. It has all the books in audio form, in video form, in text form. You can listen to it. He'll tell you, I'll be the smartest person in the world. If I have access to that, I'll be the smartest person because I'm going to read every fucking book. We all have access to it. Do you see geniuses all around you? No, because there's so much access. You're
and so
just
much
like
distraction.
And equal to the amount of access to knowledge, we have equal amount of distraction because everybody's making content, right? So I think the same thing is going to happen with AI, where every artist is now scared because some random developer can come and make the same 3D model. Sure, but they're going to be distracted with an equal amount of content and equal of other opportunities that are there. Maybe one really good developer who's really passionate is going to come and do the 3D model with AI.
Yes.
But you now have access, like you said, to his developer tools. You now have access to 100 other things. So I think if the people who are listening and watching to this right now, if all they truly care about is winning, and they're truly committed and dedicated, this is probably one of the best times. Because if you're the underdog, right, and if you've up until this day lived in a geographical location that was disadvantageous, if you were in an economic situation that was disadvantageous, you can now use AI and every other tool like Blender, Unreal Engine, all of these new tools that are giving you access to create things in real time with little to no cost. I think it's an insane time to live.
It is insane. And the reason AI is a hard topic is because it is nuanced. It's not black or white. It's not it's good or bad. It's really dependent on scenarios, because in many aspects, yes, AI is taking a lot of jobs off people. Like, that is just factually true. And also there's this kind of like AI alignment issue, which is a whole other issue. But it's like, you have to understand that we are in this environment right now. So what can I do right now? Instead of having the mindset of like, how am I a victim to this? Yeah. I think you have to put yourself in, what can I optimize? This is the reality. I can't ignore it. This is the reality. What can I use in this situation that's going to leverage what I have? Not use it to shortcut ways. That's the other way that it's becoming really an issue for a lot of artists, is sometimes even just on a cognitive level, it's making people lazier to learn things, because they're like, what's the point of learning if this thing can just do it? And it's like, just stay within what makes you drive, what your passion is about, and utilize AI as a way to increase whatever that is. If it's something laborious like rigging or whatever, and there's a faster way to rig that keeps you in the creative bubble, then of course that would be amazing. AI upscaling so you don't have to you can have your own 4K images or whatever for your textures, isn't removing anything from the creative space and
you're
bubble.
Still learning, you're still taking on challenging tasks.
Exactly.
You're letting the AI assist you rather than lead you. And I think the moment it leads you, your imagination is becoming a spectator sport.
That's the issue. It's like, if you flip it the other way, now AI is your creative thing, and you're using, ChatGPT to generate things, and you're almost having no involvement.
Right.
Then there's an issue, because
spectator.
Yeah, you're a spectator. You are having no involvement in the creation of that thing, and also AI is taking art from other things, and it's been proven to is copyright infringement or whatever. It's like, there is a lot of issues regarding image generation in general, and it's very understandable why it has so much hate. But at the same time, like I was saying about like vibe coding and like engineering, it's like, you have these tools now accessible to you. It's nuanced. Some areas absolutely should be morally damned or whatever, because it is silly, and in some areas it is making you less creative. In other areas, it's increasing your creative outflow, and it's making you learn quicker, and you have access to tools that you'd never have had access to before. So it's a hard topic, because it's impacting people's jobs on a real scale, but it's also allowing people to get out of jobs and turning their hobbies into passions, and so it's like there's opposites, and it's very hard. And I think it's why it's like it's such a topic that is, very kind of like present right now to a lot of people, because there isn't one answer. There just straight up isn't. And it's very dependent on just knowing where you want to go, and knowing that you're only going to get bad things if you turn this into like the AI is removing the process, and you're becoming output orientated, and you're trying to speed run things, and you're trying to make. I think that's the issue with like having like short-term money incentives. It's like money as a foundation to do things can be a lot of people's motivators to begin with, but it's too that foundation's too flawed, because
it's too fragile.
It's too fragile. As soon as things become hard, it's very easy to be like. To stop doing it, because your internal motivator is externally.
Yeah, because if someone can offer you more money, they're essentially going to buy out your dream.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to get rid of it. So
and also
then your dream has a price.
Maybe in an ideal scenario, let's say everything plans out perfect, you reach it, then what happens? It's like, well, you've reached a goal that has been your only source of why you build things. Yeah. Then that's also just as big of an issue, because now you are like, well, what's the point of life? Like you start
and the money you can spend. That goal is something you can spend and get it back to zero. That's the problem. Whereas if your goal is creative fulfillment, is to achieve something greater, you can never really spend that.
It's
you
infinite.
achieve it and it's with you.
Yeah.
And that's why it's very important to be very careful the kind of goals you have in life.
Yep.
It's very important. The AI topic, I think we need to keep for another podcast session, probably around 2, because what you were just getting into AI alignment and everything is something we talk about, but I think we probably need another 2 to 3 hours.
I could yap for eternity.
Trust me, we can too.
We do that every day, 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, but it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and we are so. Every time we look at your work, we admire it, because you're so talented in not just one area. Because usually with artists, sometimes they just stick to one area, but you have managed to go to different mediums and become masterful at them. Even though you might not think that, you may say that the imposter in your head is telling you that's not the case. When we see it from the outside, that's how it seems. Love the talks that you gave. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the links down in the description for people to check them out. And so, thanks for stopping by on the Bad Decisions podcast.
Thank you. No, I mean, I'm eternally grateful that you guys even found me or whatever. So, like, equal absolute admiration for you guys as well. I think I've been listening to you every time I'm on Blender and like doing my work. So it's very cool. And yeah, awesome to be in Dubai as well.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. For everybody watching and listening as well, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Until then, ciao.
Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to another episode of the Bad Decisions podcast.
Our goal is to bring this conversation in front of millions of people.
And therefore, we have one little request from you. Because if this conversation helped you, then you can help other people hear it too.
The way you can help is by leaving a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and follow us on Spotify and YouTube.
That's it. We'll see you guys next week on Tuesday.
Thank you.